This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
She's making him call her ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Like the yes, ma'am line.
So cringy.
For me, it was like, come on. No.
Season 5 of Yellowstone has begun, and how are you feeling about it? Love it or hate it, you have to agree that the first of 2 premiere episodes was decidedly slower than the way Season 4 began, until, quite suddenly, it wasn't. One major tragedy marked the Paramount Network premiere, but that death wasn't the most difficult scene to watch on Sunday night. I'm Addison Hager, and I'm excited to talk about an all-time uncomfortable exchange between Jamie and Beth. Has she finally gone too far? Welcome back to Dutton Rules, a Yellowstone 1923 podcast that promises episode breakdowns and cast interviews, and this week we got both. Billy Dukes is standing by to dive into all of the delightful pain and misery, plus a few rainbows that grew from the opening glimpses of this 5th and potentially final season. Once again, we'll look for your participation with emails at staff@tasteofcountry.com. That's also a place to answer this week's trivia question. Season 4 ended with John set to run for governor and Beth, blackmailing her brother after he killed his birth father. Season 5 begins many months later, with John being sworn in as governor and Casey Dutton's wife Monica set to give birth to their second child. I'll save the spoilers for another minute or two, except to say that one of these 2 events goes very, very poorly. Tap follow on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you podcast, because we're here weekly. Please consider leaving a 5-star rating and review where possible. It really goes a long way to letting others know about Dutton Rules. So, who dies? What's going on in the bughouse? Did Beth and Jamie make up? Let's talk about it all together during this new episode of Dutton Rules.
This is the story of the one. As head of maintenance at a concert hall, he knows the show must always go on. That's why he works behind the scenes, ensuring every light is working, the HVAC is humming, and his facility shines. With Grainger's supplies and solutions for every challenge he faces, plus 24/7 customer support, his venue never misses a beat. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hello, Addison!
Hello, Billy. Oh my goodness gracious. Carter has gone through puberty. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say to start us off. Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But first, we are back with the one and only, your little golden nugget, the trivia.
So every week we have a trivia question, and we'll bring this back. We did this during season 1. The Monday episodes will have a trivia question, and the winner essentially gets to boss me around for an episode. I'll say whatever you want me to say. I'll sing, I'll dance, whatever you need me to do. You can have fun, be creative with it. If you are the first person to answer this trivia question. You ready?
Drum roll, please. Yes, I'm ready.
This is a hard one, and it's going to require you to have watched 1883 as well, or at least be familiar with it.
Okay.
Counting 1923 and counting the baby in Monica's belly. How many actors have we seen play a John Dutton in the Yellowstone franchise?
I think I could answer that. I'll hold tight. I'll hold tight my answer for the next episode. And I just want to say, of course, you would choose this one. If listeners who've been following this podcast for a while, Billy loves a good family tree. And this does not surprise me that this is also in that wheelhouse. This is Billy's bread and butter.
I've been working on a pretty massive family tree, and we'll roll that out at some point. But staff@tasteofcountry.com is how you get into those answers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also the place if you want to just email any other thoughts, questions, or comments with regards to Yellowstone. Addison or I will respond to those emails pretty promptly.
Let's kick things off, Billy, with the kind of the elephant in the room, the classic, we're not surprised that the season is going to be full of it. The Beth and Jamie tension.
So awkward in season 2 or episode 2. Like it was. I'm having a hard time reconciling like the soft, sweet Beth we saw with Rip next to this like animal she is with Jamie. Like it's almost like I'm not really quite buying this anger any longer because she is so mean to him, unnecessarily mean to him in that second episode.
Well, and I went down a Reddit rabbit hole, and I did multiple times during the second episode specifically, and it seems as a whole, people are kind of annoyed at this point. Like as a general consensus, at least on the Reddit thread that I was reading, people are like, okay, look, how much longer can we throw out this or, continue to drag on this Beth and Jamie drama? We get it. Either, someone dies, can we just cut this and be done with it? I personally also agree. I feel like I'm being drugged behind the end of a pickup truck of like, all right, like we get it. There's tension here.
Yeah.
We've had tension for every single season. I'm a little snooze fest over it.
So to kind of recap how we got here, many years ago, Beth wanted to get an abortion, and Jamie took her to the Indian reservation, and they ended up. Was it a sterilization? Is that what they did?
Was
it a hysterectomy?
Hysterectomy. Yes, thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
Yes, hysterectomy.
Okay, they made it so she can't have babies any longer, and Beth finds out, and she has held that over Jamie for the rest of his life. And Jamie, he was just 18 years old at the time, kind of doing the best he could do, made a poor decision, but it was a really tough situation.
Right.
And she hasn't given him any ounce of forgiveness for that in the years since. So you flash forward to the end of season 4, where she not only blackmails Jamie into killing his real father, Garrett, she takes a photo of him dumping the body off at the train station so that they own Jamie essentially during this political campaign, which there's a pretty big plot hole there that we can get to in a little bit. So now we get to season 5, and John is governor, and Beth is really turning the screws to the point where she's making him call her ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Like the yes, ma'am line.
So cringy.
For me, was like, come on. No.
So
it's like
cringy,
watching a family
also,
fight. Yes.
Yeah. Which also, if you want to physically see the scene, Billy and I do recaps on our YouTube channel. So head to Taste of Country YouTube if you want to physically see it. If you don't like our rendition of it, go check it out there because it's just I have no words. But continue, Billy.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially the nut of it. I mean, I think Jamie makes some really good points and is a valuable perspective, kind of in what the Duttons are doing. Like, if they listen to him, they could kind of get what they want and stay out of jail. But Beth's just so hell-bent on doing whatever the opposite that he wants is that it almost feels counterproductive. And the whole thing is almost like watching your family fight at the Thanksgiving table, but it lasts like 2 hours.
Multiple years.
Long enough. You're like, eventually you're like, enough is enough. Let's...
Yes.
New topic.
Yes.
New topic bell. Ding.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, I kind of feel like, the new topic bell is going to be Jamie dying. Like, I don't see reconciliation. I see death.
Yeah, I think that someone has to die, either Jamie
Beth
or
is not going to die.
She could. I could see her dying. Or John Dutton, I could see dying. Like one of those 3, or 2 of them maybe, is going to have to go before the end of this season, or certainly by the end of the franchise.
Now, you just said there was a little bit of a plot hole. What is that plot hole with them?
Here's what Beth and John don't seem to realize. They're pushing Jamie around, and they're like, you'll do exactly what I say, or else. Presumably meaning, or else we're going to turn you into the cops. You'll go to jail for killing your dad. Jamie, he knows all the Dutton family secrets. Why wouldn't he just flip as the moment that the cops pick him up, be like, oh, well, you want some real dirt, and then just start spilling the news on everything the Duttons have done over the last, decades. True. And they'd be in jail just as quick and for just as long as Beth and John. So in my opinion, either Jamie doesn't realize the leverage he has, or Beth and John don't, or everybody does, and they're just kind of blind to it. Like, I don't understand why Jamie's putting up with this, because he's got a really, really good trump card in his back pocket.
Though honestly, I don't. I mean, you left me kind of speechless. I don't have a rebuttal or thought to that. I mean, yeah.
Maybe it'll happen. Maybe.
Well,
good point.
Yeah, I was like, great point, Billy. Left me stumped.
maybe by the end of the season we'll see it, I guess. But golly, it is tough to watch Beth and Jamie on screen together.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a little bit at my end of like, all right. I mean, I'm braced for it. I'm very expectant that's what I'm gonna get for the rest of the season. But
when this episode 1 started and we had that flashback sequence between Rip and Beth, and that kind of led to us seeing that softer Beth, I thought your prediction that we're going to see this warm and fuzzy Beth was going to be spot on. But then we get to episode 2 and she's yes mamming him. And I'm like, nope, that ain't going to happen. Sorry, Addison. Not this year.
Well, and I will say, yeah, I know. Well, come on, Billy. We were just in episode 2. Maybe. I'm still holding out hope. And I will say it was fun. Like I enjoyed seeing the optimist in me. I enjoyed seeing the flashback of Rip and Beth because that's not where you see her soft side. You see that actress did a great job playing the younger Beth because I was like, wow, she came out of the womb fighting. Like this girl, like this has been her personality since birth essentially. But yes, I agree. It was at that when it flashed back to present day and it was Rip and Beth in obviously the present, and she was pretty much saying it, which made me laugh. She's like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, for what? And pretty much she's like, well, I really meant this as like a blanket apology for, like anything over the past several years. And you see her, it was cool to see Rip. Like, yes, you saw her kind of break down emotionally. Like clearly that is something that's been really stirring in her. But I think what I enjoyed seeing was Rip seeing that little bit of a softer, because Rip pretty much through the rest of the first 2 episodes is back to hard Rip,
right,
life is rough, move on, where he was pretty much saying like, hey, I know the heart in there and it's big, no one else sees it, but I know what's deep inside. I thought that was a really sweet intimate moment. Like you said, yes, it was quickly squashed, but I'm not, like I said, I still have hope that we will see moments like that. I could be wrong.
The most valuable thing I took out of the flashback sequences, really both of them, because we had the one in episode 2, is we got to see that old school bunkhouse with, and I didn't realize it at the time, that was Lloyd. Like that greasy, gray, dark-haired guy was Lloyd sitting at the poker table.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I will have to give, I can't take credit for this. I watched it a second time with friends and one of my friends pointed this out. So I can't take this credit for myself, but okay. When I was watching that with the first time, I was like, man, they did a really good job of getting someone who looks like Lloyd. Like you totally knew that was like Lloyd, younger Lloyd. Well, Billy, it's his son. Like it's literally Lloyd in real life. So that's Lloyd is Forrest, or wait,
Forry J. Smith.
Forry J. Smith, yeah. That is his actual son, Forrest Smith.
Really?
Except I will say I got a little confused. I did a lot of research, so it is accurate. And on Google, he goes by Forrest Smith. If you do notice in the credits, he goes by Forrest Wilder. A little confused on that one. Okay. But if you Google him, he's Forrest Smith. And yeah, he's actually Forry's, who is played by, Forry and Forrest. Forry, who plays Lloyd, it is actually his son. Which, his how son. Freaking cool.
That's fascinating. That's really interesting. I had no idea.
I was really excited to bring that to the table, Billy.
Who are those other yahoos? None of them seem to be in the bunkhouse still.
Yeah, I don't have that lineage for you. I just had that one.
Okay. There wasn't a whole lot from the bunkhouse. Well, in the first episode, I'm going to say something. This might be a little controversial, but like season 4, the way season 4 opened with that 15-minute like opus and a gunfight and a chase and all these things happening, we get to season 5. Episode 1 was pretty slow until the very end.
Fest.
Like it was just a lot of political sort of back and forth and learning about John being governor and a lot of character reintroduction as well. Like Angela Blue Thunder is back. We learn that Sarah Atwood is coming. We meet old Tate. We meet old Carter. kind of remind ourselves what all the other characters look like. It was a lot of that.
Well, and it's almost as if they should have flipped the 2 episodes. You know what I mean? Of like the episode 2 was so full of action, which I wonder if that's how they kind of kept us, like the fact that they premiered both in the same day almost worked for episode 1's benefit. You know, like if he had just done episode 1, like would have people have tuned in because it was so slow, where he put both together. So it kind of helped the energy that was lacking in episode 1.
I agree with you there. That's a good point. You get to the end of episode 2 and you end up feeling pretty good about your night.
Yeah. Well, I loved seeing Lainey Wilson on screen.
Yeah, she plays a character named Abby. It sounds like she's a singer-songwriter, and she was set to perform at the governor's celebration. It sounds like her and Ryan are going to have a little bit of a romance. Is that kind of where your head was at as well?
I get that vibe, and you know what? I'm here for it. The actor's name is Ian Bohen, which I'm just going to say, if he ever needs a +1 to a Yellowstone event, I will gladly, if Lainey is in my, I will gladly, Ian, if you're listening, I will gladly volunteer myself. Yeah, I will say I did cringe. I was like, oh gosh, like, could we have written this maybe a little bit better? Like when he goes over to, rope her and, she's like, oh, didn't see that. Or did she say something like, oh, didn't see that coming? I was like, this is the cringiest moment. Yeah. I was like, oh gosh. But I'm here for this.
Well, we do have a little bit. We talked to Lainey about her character, and she shared a little bit with us. We talked to her before the premiere, so she couldn't share a whole lot, but she confirmed that she might, which means does, have a few kissing scenes. Not much more than that, though. There's not going to be like, she's not like the new Hassie Harrison Laramie, where she's just sort of sleeping around the bunkhouse.
Right.
So a little kissing. Well, and then we asked her if her and Ian Bohen were a couple, because we saw a picture of them kind of cuddling together. Not the case. That photo is a good reason why I think that Ryan and Abby are a couple on the show.
Well, I love, at least, the little clip that we did get to see of this Abby character. What I enjoy is Lainey's kind of getting to play herself in the sense of, you know what I mean? Like the mannerisms and even stuff that she's saying. Like, we've talked to Lainey before, and it doesn't seem like she's having to, be someone so far out of her wheelhouse that it's like, who are you? Which I think is, I don't know. I think that's cool. And I think that's going to lead to more natural acting. I could be wrong, but I feel like, well, I enjoyed all that to be said. I enjoyed, sometimes you put, people who are singers or whatever and a celebrity in a cameo role and it just flops. But I really enjoyed watching her on screen.
Well, let's not get too excited. I mean, she had about 4 lines and then she wasn't in episode 2 at all. I mean, there's still time.
I still stand strong, Billy. That's fine.
I mean, she's not quite lining up for Emmy, I don't think, at this point, but maybe.
Okay, that is fair. But if you remember, I set the bar incredibly low for Faith Hill, so I'm trying to not be so Debbie Downer. I don't know.
True.
I'm not just, but I'm also not just giving out compliments. So I said what I said about Lainey. That's how I feel about it. We'll circle back.
Meet the new Addison. Not backing down from any opinion in season 2 of the Dutton Rules podcast.
We're a well-oiled machine now, and Addison is staking her ground. I do really like, though, just kind of sticking on the singer aspect. I do like that Taylor Sheridan not only adds the actual musical acts in his shows, but he gives them the opportunity to say their name, like Shane Smith and the Saints, who play for the governor's party. Like they are able to say, hey, we're Shane Smith and the Saints from Austin, Texas, which shout out to Austin, Texas. You know what I mean? Like, I love that. I love that he gives them an opportunity to actually get clout. Why are you laughing?
That's a good point. I was just thinking oh yeah, because Texas, no one's talking about how good Texas is. But it's a good point. It's the equivalent of the band name on the drum head. It's like some signage so that people actually know who the band is and can find them. That's more than just Shazamming the song like I did.
Right.
So we called it, I think, that John Dutton does get to become governor. He's elected, and several months have passed. You figure about 6 or 7 months have passed since the end of season 4 and the beginning of season 5. And I'm saying that just because that's about how big Monica's belly has gotten. So he announced his election, ran the campaign, ends up winning, and he becomes governor. And he's on this campaign of for the land. That's his campaign slogan. And he's doing everything for the land, which really means everything for the Dutton Ranch, for the Yellowstone Ranch. And he brings back that saying, living with the land, not on it, and how he won't let New Yorkers make Montana their playground. And as he says that, I have like two competing emotions. At first, I'm like,
Okay.
hell yeah, get out of our state. You go, Governor Dutton. The other part of me is like, oh, a vacation house in Montana does sound quite nice. I wouldn't mind that one bit. Can I afford those taxes? It's like, so I'm kind of split with John Dutton saying, I see both perspectives. Like, I know why people want to be there, but also, hell yeah, kick them out. Build a wall.
I do love his, I'm the opposite of progress. I'm the wall it bashes against. I was like, and here we go with the one-liners from John.
So many good Dutton lines. That was probably the best. That was actually a line from season 4. I don't know if we had any brilliant lines in season 5. Certainly had a memorable one from Tate. Yeah. That was a really good line. But I don't know. It's going to be a lot of politics, I think, of this season with Dutton. I hope it kind of transitions to a little bit more Dutton-centric stuff, because to me, that's more interesting. But they did need to let the character grow. And I suppose in this way, it allows some new characters to come into the show with him in office.
Well, I just love how, and he literally says this on stage that, he doesn't necessarily want to be there in that position, but it's just so funny as, his staff is, running different things by him. And he's like, what the heck is this? What the heck? You know what I mean? It's like, truly put someone who does not care to be in that position.
Who was the old timer behind John Dutton, kind of as he's making his march to the podium?
I was wondering that, because to be quite honest with you, that kind of looks like another person that is probably some famous person in general. Like, that doesn't,
Right.
Like, I'm sure I don't know. I couldn't Reddit hold that one. So if you guys know, staff@tasteofcountry.com, please email us.
I think the character is the same character who tried to convince Casey to become governor back in season 4. Remember, they sit Casey down, and there was that guy. He was one of the ranchers. Casey takes care of that one problem by putting people in the cattle trap, or the cattle. I forget what that's called, but he puts a guy in there. But the cattle guard, yeah. But then there's that old timer that kind of comes up to him on behalf of some of the other ranchers. So I think he has some pull, maybe within some sort of agricultural agency, but his name and position kind of escaped me. But I certainly didn't think he was important enough to be like right on John Dutton's right shoulder as he's being inaugurated and speaking. That was confusing to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that was one, like I said, I feel like he's an important person outside of the show, but couldn't figure out who that was.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Well, we've kind of dodged around the big topic of this two-part episode. I mean, the big tragedy that happened. It's tough to watch and maybe even difficult to talk about, but there certainly was one major death with this premiere.
I have many thoughts on this specific scene. If you want to kind of set up what we saw. So
Casey is at the Montana-Canada border taking care of some horse wranglers. And so he's miles and miles, hours from home. And Monica goes into labor. She's 3 weeks early and she goes into labor. She's at home with Tate and she thinks the baby's coming really fast. So she doesn't feel like she should wait. So she gets in the car and tries to drive herself to the hospital. Casey says he'll send an ambulance to kind of meet her halfway. Tate's in the passenger seat. And Monica's having contractions while she drives. So she's swerving, and Tate's like, do you want me to drive? She's like, you can't drive. He's like, I can do better than you. And he's probably right.
Amen.
A buffalo steps onto the road. And it's unfortunate because there's a truck coming the other way with some goober eating snacks. And they kind of come up on the buffalo at the same exact time as Monica has a contraction. So there's this like trilogy of unfortunate events. Monica ends up hitting the buffalo or the other truck. Of course, she's not wearing a seatbelt because she's in labor. She goes through the windshield. The other guy presumably dies. Tate is wearing his seatbelt, so he ends up with just a broken arm, thankfully, and he gets out and is able to kind of call 911 and help his family out. But the devastating part about all that is that Monica loses the baby, and we learn that from Tate, who tells Governor John Dutton, this is the most heartbreaking line, I had a brother for an hour anyways. I mean, it was just a rip your heart out line from Tate. And the baby's name was, as we alluded to in the trivia question, John Dutton.
Which that already, disproves my theory that I thought Monica was going to die in childbirth. I said that in a previous episode. But I think that scene, the ending of that scene where you have Casey lying in the hospital bed with Monica, you have John in the room with them, and then you have Beth, trying to hold Tate's hand, and Jamie kind of, in that, in the shot, and they do kind of the slow pull out. I thought that was so well done.
That was the end of episode 1. And I thought, okay, we've lived through that. We'll move on in episode 2. But episode 2, they rewind to show you how the crash happened. And then you really lived through it. And that piggybacked with Jamie and Beth in the first 25 minutes of episode 2 was like, okay, now we're back. Welcome to Yellowstone. Here we are. This is what people pay to see.
Right. Yeah. I will say I do like in that scene, as heavy as it was and hard as it was to watch, I did like that we saw more of Tate. I don't know if becoming a man necessarily is the right word, but he's kind of always been the one that's, where's Tate, looking out for Tate, kind of everyone needs to like coddle to Tate, where Tate now is kind of the provider in this scene. He's the one who has to go find the phone, call for help. I enjoyed seeing him kind of in a more, let's say, mature, like you said, this now we're picking up several months down the road. Does not look the same as he used to, like Carter doesn't. And so I really did like in this scene of like, okay, he's taking ownership of this situation. Monica physically cannot take ownership of this. And instead of just going, don't know what to do, crouch, let's just wait for an ambulance to come, he took ownership, which I did really like seeing that.
100% agree. I think there's a lot of potential for that character. It would look now, I guess by my accounting, that maybe they're going to somehow move back to the ranch. That's kind of where I feel like we're headed. We know the funeral is going to be at the ranch, which I think is no small thing because she could have had it on her family's property on the Indian reservation. So I feel like we're going to incorporate them back into the Dutton family at some point. But I think that kind of also leads to what Casey saw on his vision quest.
Well, I will say I have some hot takes of this scene that I just wasn't too fond of. And also this is where I went down the Reddit rabbit hole. Few things I just want to throw out here.
Hit me.
Number one, why? I understand that she's in labor, but number one, why didn't she wear a seatbelt? I don't think the fact that she's going in labor is an excuse for not wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, number one, we didn't have to be thrown out of the car, okay? So seatbelt,
okay, fair
great.
enough.
She's in labor. Why didn't we let Tate drive? I understand that he's like 14 years old, but clearly, like, this was, I will say, I don't think this scene was needed. Like, we could have avoided all of this. Like, okay, have Tate drive. Like, yeah, it would have been fine. You're on country roads. Also, did she really not see? I mean, I'm not here to badger Monica right now, but I thought it was odd that at the very last second, I mean, they're on this dirt road in the middle of nowhere. I'm live in Texas and I've driven on a ton of random rural roads, you know when a car is coming because it is pitch black out there. So you're telling me she didn't see the headlights of the car until they were right up on the car? You know what I mean? There's some flaws here that as I was watching, I was like, this is, I would have seen, I mean, it was pitch black. I would have seen the car coming.
I think, so, okay. So your first points are 100% valid. I think some poor decisions were made, probably, in the heat of having a baby. But I think she probably saw the other vehicle, but because the other vehicle was so close to her, it blinded her from seeing the buffalo.
Okay.
As well as the other driver. So that's kind of why there was that accident. Like that accident, I don't think happens if there wasn't a buffalo right in the middle of the road.
Okay.
You're looking at me like,
think this was
there's something wrong here, but I just don't know what it is.
I still think it was a little over dramatized. Do I still think it was good? Like it was a great, I hate saying like a great scene for the plot because it is a very heavy scene. Like there were so many like positive points to adding it in the episode, but the more I thought about it logistically, I was like, okay, we're really reaching here. But this is also not the only scene that I really felt like we were reaching here. I don't know if we want to dive into the wolves next,
one second. We can get into the wolves in a moment. But I want one thing I want to kind of point out about the loss of the baby is I was actually a little bit surprised by how quickly Monica, especially, seemed to kind of come to terms to some extent. Like, because if you remember at the start of season 4, it was several episodes, I think, before we even saw Monica, and then she was just
true,
almost like unable to talk or communicate. There was so much anger and fear, like living inside of her. But by the end of episode 2, her and Casey had kind of began a road to recovery of some sort. Like she wasn't going to beat up Casey for not being there. She wasn't going to beat up herself. They joked about how Tate wants a brother still, and maybe they'll try again. Like there was still kind of a glimmer of hope on that. And that was kind of surprising to me. And they also, in that scene, they talked about what Casey saw in the vision quest. And she asked if that was what he saw. And he said, I would never see that. But what surprised me there was that she still doesn't know what he saw. Like, does he have to keep that a secret? Is that part of the experience that he can't tell people what he saw? It must be. That's the only explanation why you wouldn't tell your wife.
I do think that's odd. Unless we're just like big question askers. I mean, yeah, I would have already been like, so what'd you see? You know, if you just I saw the end of us. Okay, cool. Like, no. I'm asking like, what? Like, I need more.
No. My wife wouldn't go to bed that night. I'd just be in her ear. What'd you see? So what'd you see? Was it this? Was it this? Come on, you got to give me something. You know, I mean, like, so it must be part of the whole experience that she respects it and understands that he can't say more than he's said. I mean, we still don't know though. 2 episodes in, we have no really clue what Casey saw.
Yeah, good on Monica. I for sure would not. Like you just said, I would have been like, so what'd you see? Please tell me, please. I won't tell anyone.
Yeah. Come on. And needling him. All right, so you didn't like the wolves. How come?
Okay. So here's the scene where Ryan and is it Colby? What's his other ranch hand's name? Is it Colby? I'm getting better with the bunkhouse's bros names. Anyways, they go out in the middle of the night to shoot essentially wolves that are eating the cattle or attacking the cattle.
Yeah, the calves. It's calving season on the ranch, which I did some research and learned is from January to March. So I actually think they're a little bit late because there's leaves on the trees. But yeah, it's cattle season. The cows are having their babies and they're trying to protect them.
So essentially in the middle of the night, go and shoot the wolves. Well, we have a slight issue. Once they come up on them, they realize that they are tagged. So Billy, I don't know if you want to kind of go into that a little bit of like the red flag with all of that.
Well, the best I can understand is that they're preserved by the national park. These are wolves that are tagged as residents, so to speak, of Yellowstone National Park. I don't know a lot about that experience or how common that is or exactly what that means, but it almost felt like accidentally killing your neighbor's dog.
Right. Right. Well, and so the issue that they now have is Ryan panics going, if these are sedentary for 12 hours, we're going to have, law enforcement essentially coming to take us
Right.
out. And also the fact that we are on the governor's ranch is not going to look good. So they're trying to figure out what to do with these tags. Essentially, Rip comes and helps them. They tie these tags to logs. And so they get them off the ranch. They tie them to logs, throw them into the river, which will essentially, drag them on. It'll keep them active. And then at some point, they'll fall off, whatever. And they're saying that they won't be able to tie them to the Duttons. Here's where the flaw is. And I was like, what? All they have to do is with the GPS trackers, the collars, they're going to see that they were on the Dutton Ranch and then went straight from the Dutton Ranch to a river. Like, you're telling me that they're not going to be able to figure out who killed them? Like, I feel like that was a over dramatized, like, okay, let's go throw them in the river, all the above, where I'm like, look, it is a GPS tracker. They're going to see that it was on the Dutton Ranch and went straight to the river, and they're going to know who killed them. Like, this is not rocket science.
Well, they will now that one got held up in the branches. Like, they're going to find it on the log, and that's going to be an issue. But I think the idea was that it would fall off the log and just sort of wash up ashore, and the park would think that the wolf just died and it fell off and
all
somehow got carried.
All five have it?
It didn't seem like the best of Rip's plans. Like, I feel like Rip has had better plans. Like, to me, the truth might have been like an option. I feel like
the truth will set you free.
They wouldn't have got arrested. Like they said, they had the tags. It was just kind of an unfortunate thing. It would have brought some really, really bad publicity. But now they're gonna have to explain or get their way out of an upcoming pickle with regards to all of this. Yeah, that's messy.
It's messy, and yet another branch on the tree of just like topics to touch on with this show.
There was a lot. We didn't talk about market equities a lot, and I only want to talk about market equities so that we can talk about Sarah Atwood, who seems to be market equities Beth. Like, we put everybody in like a little bit of a Beth box. Like, there's Native American Beth with Angela Blue Thunder, and now we have market equities Beth, and then we have the real Beth. But I'm a big fan of this Sarah Atwood character. She just seems like she's going to stir some stuff up and be a lot of fun to watch.
She's annoying to me, but that's okay.
You don't like you're annoyed by her. How come?
I just think she's overdoing it. Like, when at the end she's like, I like when she gets mad. It means I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm like,
oh, I love that line.
Who are you? She annoys the heck out of me. I'm like, who are you?
Is it possible that my attraction to this character and your sort of repulsion by this character are both your disdain are both for the same reason, that she's like this beautiful, powerful woman that I'm like, and you're like, oh, I hate that girl. I don't even want to know her. I hate that girl.
No, it's not that. I'm here for that. It's just the like coming in acting like a big shot. Almost, I feel like she's overproving herself. I think that's what it comes down to. Of like, instead of like just like the line I even said, I feel like she's overdoing it. Like, you can be powerful and in control and not have to. I don't know. So no, it's not for the same reason. It's just more so the reason that I'm like, all right, we get it. You're in, like, I don't know.
Okay. All right. Staff at tasteofcountry.com if you have a response or if you want to answer today's trivia question. We're going to do Monday recaps. Thursday, I think we can reveal this now. Thursday, we have an interview with Ryan Bingham coming. I chatted with Ryan Bingham for like 25 or 30 minutes. He plays Walker on Yellowstone. We haven't seen too much from him. But a really nice conversation with Ryan Bingham coming on Thursday. And then next Monday, we'll recap episode 3 of the show.
Can we tease the first thing that you asked him, Billy? Just because I love it.
What is Walker's last name?
That's how he entered the interview. And I love it. We do things different. We're very personable here at Taste of Country. Hi, I'm Billy Dukes. Why doesn't he have a last name? Why don't you have a last name? No,
I'll share this. He shares an amazing story from the Lloyd Walker fight scene in the bunkhouse when Lloyd stabs or throws the knife at Walker.
Mm-hmm.
An amazing sort of behind the scenes story about how that all worked and how it went terribly wrong. That is just truly hilarious. That was my favorite part of the interview, when he kind of went backstage, so to speak. But a really nice conversation. A good guy. It was everything I hoped it would be, because I really wanted to talk with Ryan Bingham for a long time. And
yeah,
this ended up being a really fun conversation.
That's Billy Dukes, writer, podcast co-host, and Ryan Bingham stan. Who knew? I'm Addison Hager, and thank you so much for listening to Dutton Rules, a Yellowstone 1923 podcast. We'll return with episode breakdowns every Monday and have cast interviews midweek. Sterling Whitaker will also return soon to talk about conversations he's had with show stars like Cole Hauser and Luke Grimes, plus the latest conspiracy theories, so tap follow so those episodes download immediately to your podcast player. Dutton Rules is written by myself and Billy Dukes with the help from Sterling Whitaker. Each episode is produced by Billy Dukes, and you can find valuable recaps and explanations in the archives of Season 1, and email staff at tasteofcountry.com with your ideas, questions, and the answer to this week's trivia question. As always, Dutton Rules is another great Townsville Media podcast.